Makes me feel so good about it. Makes me feel so good that's about what this is about what we're gonna do now. I got half the place drunk. All right.
No, Reb Zev, you don't have something a little tayameha before. You're muted. It's automatic mute.
You already drank so much you can't even hear you. Anyways.
On mute. Oh. Here we go. Reb Zev, now we can hear you.
I love you too. Come on, let's get going.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Okay, so the Chazer, we're to Chazer from yesterday, Kuf Chav Daled. Right, that was Kuf Chav Daled.
If you go by your text, you can Chazer both Daled.
Sorry, Kuf Chav Hey. Yeah. Hold on a second. Yeah, so using Bros.
Jaco, I posted the wrong one on the YouTube.
Sorry about that.
I saw the latest one. I didn't chop. You didn't post the other day.
Yeah, I forgot to post it. Okay, anyways, let's go. So using broken pieces of mats on Shabbos, that was on the top of the Amud, and then using remnants of clothing less than 3 fingers by 3 fingers, which is not good for anybody. Machlekes by using broken pieces of an oven, and covers of an oven don't require a handle in order for them to not to be muktzah, which is what we're going to discuss today too. Then the Mishnah says using a bucket for a well that has a stone in it, and then using a grapevine for a bucket, and a machlekes of a window shade can be used if it's not attached. And the Gemara says picking up a barrel of wine that has a stone on it. Gershon, your kasha, we're going to have to deal with in like Kuf Mem Beis. We'll have to deal with why it's not a buses. In this case, it's similar to the case of the bucket in the Mishnah, or is it different? Does making something with a non-muktzah before Shabbos require physical action or just a thought? Meaning, if you want to take stones and decide you want to use them on Shabbos, do you have to actually physically do something to it, or do you just have it in your head? Right? And then we discussed if the vine is still attached to the tree, does it need to be tied to the bucket? And we said the vine isn't muktzah. Why isn't it muktzah? It's attached to the tree. And because we said it's less than 3 tvachim. Fine. Okay, so pekaka chaloin. Yeah, on 2, 4, 6, 10 lines up from the bottom, pekaka chaloin. Right, so a window shade or a window, I don't know, something that sits in the window. Yeah? What do you say?
Shutter.
Shutter, thank you, a shutter. Yeah, pekaka chaloin, right? So in the Mishnah, we really need this for the next Amud. Right? So we said, what's the case? So you have a window shutter or a window shade that's connected to, so can you plug it into the window or not? Can you put that thing into the window? Right? So the Tanakama had said, Rabbi Eliezer had said that when it's tied up to the wall, so then you're allowed to put it back in there. If it's not tied, then you're not allowed to. The Chum say, Benkach or Benkach, you're allowed to. Right? Now the shayla is going to be, what do the Chacham mean, bein kach or bein? But before that, the Gemara says an interesting little short Gemara here that has a lot of practical ramifications. Kaka chaloin. You are not allowed to make a temporary oil on Yom Tif, and that goes without saying, you're not allowed to make it on Shabbos. Now, what is a temporary oil? So when you want, when kids want to make a tent, let's say.
So like if you wanted to fix your tent for your shul on Shabbos or Yom Tov.
Exactly. Right, 100%. Yep.
It always relates to Corona.
There you go.
Every time.
100%. 100%. Right. So can I set up my broken tent? Yeah, very good. So can I? So you cannot. An oil, right? Everybody agrees that you're not allowed to make an oil arai on Shabbos and on Yom Tov. The machlekes is, are you allowed to add on to an oil? Meaning if you have a tent and then you want to extend the tent. Rabbi Elazar says you're not allowed to add on Yom Tov. And it goes without saying you're not allowed to do it on Shabbos. The Chachamim say you could do it on Shabbos, and of course you could do it on Yom Tov.
So Yaakov, does a shlak, is a shlak meduma to this case, or it's not?
100%. Yes, very good. That's one of the practical applications. I would have forgotten to say it if you wouldn't have reminded me. Thank you. So a shlak, you can't take a shlak and put it on your sukkah from scratch on Shabbos or on Yom Tov, because that is making an oil. But if it's already on top of your sukkah, then you're allowed to extend it. Right? That's what the Gemara is saying. Right?
So according to Rabbi Elazar, it would be usher?
What?
According to Rebbe Lezer, it would be usher even a shlak would be usher even if it's already set up before Yom Tov.
Correct. According to Rebbe Lezer, you would not be able to put on a shlak, even if it's half open on Shabbos or Yom Tov. You're not allowed to, because he holds you're not allowed to be moisef on an oil. Chachamim, who we paskin like, you are allowed to be moisef on an oil. That's why you need the shlak to be open at least one tefach on top of your sukkah if you want to be able to open it. The shaila in the paiskim is the roll, right? You roll up the schach, so that covers a tefach usually. But is that considered open or is that not considered open? I don't remember now what we come out with.
And what about umbrellas?
Umbrellas, they have to be open a little bit. You're muted.
Why?
About what?
An umbrella be'etzim is set up to be an oil, right? Meaning it's always set up to be open. That's the mitzias of an umbrella.
Yeah. So me'ikar adin, really, umbrellas is not as bad. Like in the vel, to open an umbrella is one of the seres hadibras, right?
But what mitzad this gemara, it should be mutter.
Me'ikar adin, it is mutter. The Chazon Ish is the one that put a stop to it. He felt that it was not proper. So Klal Yisrael was makabel on themselves. Like why? Listen, and if you keep an umbrella open from before Shabbos, that's certainly not a problem, right?
Right, but I'm saying even without that, it should be
correct. But even that, like, why didn't Klal Yisrael just leave their umbrellas open before Shabbos and use them, right? I mean, this Shabbos, another Inyan D'Yom, right? This Shabbos would be a smart. Well, I don't know if an umbrella is going to help with the wind, right? But we don't do it.
Notice because they're relatively easy to fix. That would be tikkun money.
What?
An umbrella, a
Would
bike,
be tikkun-
all these things.
If it breaks?
Yeah, if one of the spokes come out, just stick it back in. That would be.
Oh, I don't know. I never heard that, Tom. I could be. I did. I don't remember. But it was.
I thought it's always because LRI.
Yeah. Now, more practical application is a baby stroller, right? So they want to cover it with a netting or a plastic in the rain, right? So if it has no cover at all, so then you're not allowed to cover it, right? But as long as it has a hood, if it has a hood, so that's to add on top of that a plastic or a netting. That's no problem because you're being moisef on an oil. Right?
How about opening a stroller if it has a basket, a pocket under it? Is that an oil?
Oh, very
Making an
good.
oil?
So now, how come when you open up a folding table, that's not making an oil?
Not the normal way.
I mean, what you're Maisa, you're protecting something. You're making an oil. Putting on a tablecloth. Why is that? What are you saying?
What are you protecting by opening a table?
You could put stuff under the table, won't get wet if it's raining.
Oh.
Not in today's rain, but in a normal rain, right? So the pshat is because it's an oil is only an oil if you open it to protect something under it. When you open a table, it's for on top. You're opening the table because you want to use the top of the table, not the bottom of the table, right?
Yeah. So Yaakov, we said there's a problem with the caterers with the skirts they put on the table. That could be.
Could be right. Very good. That could be a problem, right? They put on those things to make their tables look fancy, right? And then, right, that could be. Well, that's a mechitza more. Yeah, it could be. I'll tell you. So somebody just texted me Lego. What about making Lego on Shabbos? So, okay, that's a baina issue. But then one of the poskim said, I forgot who it was. I think from England. So when a kid builds a house and it has a tefach of height, right? Now you just made yourself an oil, right? So if you made it from scratch, it's a problem. If you added it onto an existing Lego, then it's not a problem because that's moisef on an oil. But if you're making the oil from scratch, it might be an issue. That was like, oh, taka. I never thought of that one. Anyways, okay, but the bottom line is we paskin that moisef al oil is okay. Making an oil lechatchil is not okay. Okay, bye.
Yaakov, you have a very concerned citizen right here when you said that.
What about the Lego?
Yeah.
Right,
Yes,
the tents they make, how about like the forts they make? That also has the same problems.
The fort, yeah.
Yeah, the 10 forts. That's what he's saying. The 10
Yeah.
forts.
Yes, yeah, all those
No,
type of
Lego-
things.
No, it's not permanent. It's a very temporary thing. It's not even.
I know, but a temporary thing for Lego, yes, where's yes? For Lego, right? For Lego, it's temporary. If you're going to knock it back down and you're going to smash it, that's temporary. It's boina. Oil, it
Why?
doesn't
But you're
work.
not really. What are you protecting with Lego?
What do you
what
mean?
can
When
you
you build a Lego house, or you build from the, what do you say, Yossi?
I was
Like
saying
a
if you
fort.
do build like a fort, like,
Yeah,
you
you
do
make a fort.
couches.
So now, right. And
Yeah,
then the
with the
kids are
pit-
using it, right? They're putting, right? And they're putting the soldiers inside the fort, right? So that's an oil. That's a temporary oil.
Okay.
Yeah, but Siakam, it's not like salmon oil. It's salmon akama.
I don't know.
How far do you
Oil
take that?
doesn't. So now that's another subject. That's another subject in Gansen. Does this have to be an oil or is it even a mechitza? Right. So
Rashi says only oil, not a mechitza.
correct. So Taisus disagrees.
Ah.
Right. Rashi says it's an oil. Taisus is chaylik on this Rashi, and he basically comes out of mechitza materes is a problem. I mean, you can't make a mechitza that's going to allow something halachically to be okay. Meaning, let's say my eruv falls down. Right? So can I put up a mechitza? Let's say I'll take my garbage cans and line it up. What's wrong? I mean, maybe let's assume not the garbage cans, maybe they're muksa. Right? But whatever it is, I want to line things up, and that'll be that's called a mechitza. Right, or caterer carts, like right? So that's a mechitza hamateres, which might be a problem. Okay, let's go back to yeah. Anyway, so the chachamim oimrim benkach u benkach poikigim boy. Right, so again, back in the Mishnah.
Song of the daf.
I don't know. That's a shvach one, very shvach. All right. But anyways,
desperate, 120 something blot into Shabbos.
Okay. Yeah. So Rabbi Eliezer says there's a song Ben Kach U Ben Kach from Avram Fried, right? But the rest of the word, that's it. It's only those 4 words. So okay. Anyways, in the Mishnah, Rabbi Eliezer says that when the window, what'd you call it again, Gershon?
Shutters.
The shutters, thank you. When the window shutter is attached to the house, then you're allowed to put it on Shabbos. When it's detached from the house, according to Rabbi Eliezer, you're not allowed to put it on. And the Chacham say benkach u benkach, you're allowed to. The question is, what do the Chacham mean by benkach u benkach? So my benkach u benkach, what does that mean? It's Amar of Abba, Amar of Kahana, ben kosher, ben she'ena kosher. Rav Abba Bar Kahana says the pshat is whether it's tied on, whether it's not tied on. Usha Mesukkan, as long as it's Mesukkan, meaning it's prepared that's what you're going to do. So he goes the opposite extreme. Rabbi Eliezer holds it has to be tied up. And the Chacham say, no, it makes no difference if it's tied up, it's not tied up, you can put it into the window. Amalei Rav Yirmiyah, V'lei Mar, so Rav Yirmiyah says, no, maybe V'lei Mar, bein talui, bein she'ena talui. Doesn't make a difference whether it's hanging or not. V'usha kosher, it's got to be tied. Meaning, maybe when the Chacham say benkach u benkach, what they mean is whether this shutter is hanging from the wall or if it's resting on the ground, but it has to be attached to the house, right? Meaning they're saying the benkach u benkach is saying that benkach u benkach is whether the shutter is hanging from the wall, because if it's hanging from the wall, it's not resting on the ground. We look at it like it's part of the house. But if it's already resting on the ground, then maybe it's less part of the house. So the Chacham is saying no, it's either one, whether it's hanging or resting on the ground, you're allowed to put it in, but it has to be tied on, right? Total opposite than the first sheet. The first sheet is saying it doesn't have to be tied on at all. Second sheet is saying, no, it does have to be tied on. Just the benkach u benkach is whether it's hanging or resting on the ground. Right? It's the same machlokes here, is the machlokes by the bolt that they put into a door. The Tanan, Nagar, Nigra. So if you have a bolt, that's tied onto the door. Nigra meaning literally it's rolling, right? Meaning it's on the ground. You have this bolt that they use to lock up a door, and it's attached by a rope or a chain, but it's resting on the floor. Na'elam by b'mikdash, you're allowed to use it in the Beis HaMikdash of a Medina, and not in the Medina, like you said yesterday, Rabbi Harma. 2 days ago that ain't supposed to be mikdash, so it would be an issa d'Rabbanan because it looks like baina. So in the Beis HaMikdash, we don't have that problem. So in the Beis HaMikdash, you're allowed to use this bolt, in order to lock up your door. Avalei Medina, but you wouldn't be able to do it outside of Beis HaMikdash because it looks like baina, right? V'amunach kan v'kan aser. But if it's resting on the floor, then both places it's aser. Rabbi Yehuda Amunach b'mikdash, in the Beis HaMikdash, if it's resting on the floor, then it's okay. V'anigra b'Medina, and if it's just hanging, that you're allowed to do it in the Medina. The Tanya Ezu Nigra Nagar and Nigra. We said what is considered a Nagar Hanigra? The Shanaylam of Mikdash Avalon Medina. What is it? What's the description of this thing that we're talking about? This bolt. As long as it's tied onto the door and it's hanging, and the head of it reaches the ground. If that's what you're saying, then that's even mutter in the Medina because it's tied on. What should be the problem? What's asr in the Medina? What's asr in Medina is if it's not tied and it's not even hanging, and you just take the bolt totally out of the door and you put it in a corner, right? Which is the way most bolts I think people have nowadays, right? They're not attached to the, well, I guess the bolt that's really attached to it, you just slide it, right? But sometimes you have like people that have sliding doors, right? I think that would be the most, you have the sliding porch door. So sometimes they have this piece of metal that you wedge in so that the door stays locked, right? So that, I think most of them detach from the house. So that, Rabbi Yehuda is saying, that would be awesome, right? Who's the Tana that says Nagara Nigra, who's Machmer? It's Rabbi Elazar. Yeah, so if that's Rabbi Elazar, so it means the other Mando Amar, who must be the Chachamim, and they say that it has to at least be tied to the house, right? All the opinions say it has to be at least tied to the house. So maybe that's what the Machlekes is over here too. So Amarle, no, I know the Amrikiya Tana the Tanya. I hold like this Tana that learned the Brisa Konasheskinu Balabayas Lias Pesach V'Noyavoy. A kana, a reed that the Balabayas was musakin, that he fixed in order to be able to open and close doors. Bisman shekosher v'tali v'pesach pesach v'noyavoy. As if it's tied up to the door, then you're allowed to open and close with it. Ain kosher v'tali, ain pesach v'noyavoy. But if it's not tied on and hanging, then you can't. That's clearly not the chachamim. Rav Shimon Gamliel Omer mesukan afa pisha ein kosher. As long as it's mesukan, meaning it's prepared, and it's not muksa, then it doesn't have to be tied. So we're saying that our chachamim of our Mishnah go like Rav Shimon Gamliel, and therefore it does not have to be tied on. According to the chachamim, it does this window shutter does not have to be tied on. You can just pop it in. Fine.
See, does anyone hold it's usher? Does anyone hold this is usher midaraisa, or is it only usher midarabanan because it's like a binder? Meaning, are any of these cases usher midaraisa?
Well, there's one sheet in the Brisa here that says that.
That's what I'm saying. So it seems like there's a bit of a gulf between that sheet and the other sheet. Meaning, one sheet the mamish holds it's usher midaraisa, and the other sheet holds it's even mutter.
No, it's not gonna.
It's almost like they go to opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It's a pretty broad machlokes. Yeah, that's what comes out. Pretty broad. One says it's a daraisa, and one says it's mutter. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, can't disagree. As hard as it is for me to not disagree, but yeah.
Like some people hold it's an issa daraisa to have a kiddush in shul, not for COVID, regular. You can't have schnapps in shul. And some of us, Baruch Hashem, hold it's a mitzvah deraisa.
and some.
Yeah, Rabbi, we wouldn't go to such shuls.
Okay.
And some hold it such a mitzvah, you start from Friday. Oh, no.
It's reason my demon.
L'chaim.
Yeah. So, Amar Rav Yehuda, Bar Shelos, Amar Rav Asi, Amar Rav Yochanan, halacha Rav Shimon Gamliel. The halacha is like Rav Shimon Gamliel, right? Which is that you would be able to pop this shutter in with even if it's not attached. Does Rabbi Yochanan really hold like Rav Shimon Gamliel? Now, okay, well, let's read the Gemara first and we'll say the Hara. Yeah? Does Rabbi Yochanan go like Rav Shimon Gamliel? But Tanan Kol Kisuyei Kelim Sheyesh Lehem Beis Achiza. Every keli that has a handle on it, Nidla b'Shabbos, you're allowed to take it on Shabbos. Meaning pot covers. Pot covers. Now, by the way, a pot. Since we are somewhere in the middle of muksa, even though we're not done with it, so we can still discuss it, right? A pot cover is not muksa l'chayra because it has a handle. That's what we're saying. Anything that has a handle is not muksa. Now, a pot cover can be muksa because what do you do with a pot on Shabbos, right? Depending on what type of pot. Because if you're not allowed to cook on Shabbos, so it's a type of pot that you would only use for cooking. Let's say like a frying pan. See, a regular pot, you can make a salad in it, you can put some ice cream in it, you can do that. But a frying pan, right? I don't think anybody would cut a salad in a frying pan. So maybe a frying pan cover might be muksa to that. But any utensil.
Klishma after is always usher. I'm saying it's still
What?
it's
No,
it's not. What about sorry from Gufay?
No, Kufay Mekayma, yes.
Oh,
But it really
fine.
has it in muksa, yeah. So, anyways, we're saying any keli that has a handle on it, it's going to be mutter. Amar Rav Yehuda bar Shela, Amar Rav Asi, Amar Rav Yochanan. Hu sheyesh teiros kli aleim. Now he limits this, Rav Yochanan. That's only if it has a teiros kli. If it doesn't have a teiros kli, right, then you can't. Yeah. So the chitei mahachanami the ikateiros kli alav. So you're going to say, okay, so maybe here there also is a teiros kli on it. Meaning this stick that you're using to lock up the door. Maybe you could use it as a kli. What would you do? Rashi says, remember we had 2 blot ago, you can use it to check on the olives, right? You stick the piece of wood into the olive barrel to check on whether the olives are ready or not. So maybe you can consider that a kli. So then the Gemara says, does Reb Shimon Gamliel, who we just said Reb Yochanan holds like, does he require a kli? But Tanya Chariya Shel Dekel, right? We had this yesterday. Right, if you have the pieces of the wood of a dekel tree, shegidron l'shem eitzim, you cut them down because you want it for firewood. B'nim l'chaleim, right? So Friday morning, you cut them down for firewood for your Motzei Shabbos campfire. Then you changed your mind. B'nim l'chaleim liyeshiva, and then you changed your mind Friday afternoon that you're going to use them as a chair. Tzarich l'kasha. So the Mandomer said you can't just decide. You can't just sit by your dining room table and say, oh, you know what, I'm going to use those for a chair. So it's not muksa. Right? You have to actually go out and do something to these pieces of wood by tying them. Rav Shimon Gamliel ain't tzarich l'kasha. Right? So Rav Shimon says, you don't have to kasha. So Rabbi Yochanan, you don't have to tie it. So Rabbi Yochanan clearly is not going like Rav Shimon Gamliel. Right? So now, how could it be? So well, again, these are 2 different machlokes in here. Rabbi Yochanan, we said Rabbi Yochanan passes like Rav Shimon Gamliel that you could use the wood. You could use the wood in order to lock a door, right? Then we're saying a kash on him that Reb Shimon Gamliel holds that you have to use a kli with a kli. If you're using a kli on Shabbos, not a kli. I'm sorry. If you're taking something that's muksa on Shabbos, so then you have to have it in Rabbi Yochanan holds you have to actually do something physical to it. So not like Reb Shimon Gamliel. Does this mean that Rabbi Yochanan has to pass him like Reb Shimon Gamliel everywhere just because he passed him like him once? Right? It seems like the Gemara's Havamina again. We had it a few blot ago, 10 blot ago, that the Havamina of the Gemara seems to be like if I pass him like Rav Moshe Feinstein that I eat Chol of Yisrael, that means I can't put an air conditioner on a Shabbos clock, right? That's our go-to mashal, right? That's always our go-to mashal. Because if anybody's not aware, Rav Moshe Feinstein holds you're not allowed to put really anything on a Shabbos clock. Lights, he said, is okay because it was already, everybody was doing it, but air conditioners, you can't. So that means if I eat Chol of Stam, that means I have to go to Rav Moshe Feinstein. But that's what the Gemara seems to be saying here. If you hold like Rav Shimon, Rabbi Yochanan holds like Rav Shimon, he's got to hold like him. But the Gemara answers, Rabbi Yochanan, Tzfir le'kavasei b'chado, Polagolei b'chado. No, Rabbi Yochanan holds like him in one case, and he disagrees with him in another case. Okay, so it comes out the maskana that you don't have to hold like, Rabbi Yochanan does not have to hold like Rav Shimon Gamliel in all the situations. Okay.
So, we would never be able to listen to music if we held like Rav Moshe.
Correct. That's another one. That's a good one. In Yonah D'Yoma. Fine. So Dorish Rav Yitzchak Nafcha Apisla Dereish Galusa. Rav Yitzchak Nafcha darshaned on the door, by the door Dereish Galusa. Halacha, meaning I guess he was paskening on his door, right? How do you understand that? Anybody? It says Dorish Rav Yitzchak Nafcha Apisla Dereish Galusa. Yeah. On the door of the Reish, meaning he said it by the door. When I first learned it, I said he did it by the door. You know, he's standing in the doorway and he paskined it. Or was he paskening about the door that you can put a lock in the door?
At the door.
So it's not. So you're just saying we're talking about doors, or Baron, and this is for you. We're talking about doors, and then they decide to say that he decided to paskin by the door, right?
He's paskening on the case of the chaloi, not the door. I'm just pointing that out.
No, we're zustelling doors also.
Does that mean they didn't let him in the house?
Depends if they held like him, right? I hear. Okay, okay. That's I'm stomach. You're right, Reb Zev. I think it's by.
Art Scroll says. Art Scroll says discoursed at the entrance to the house.
Okay, so then so it's like that. That's the way I thought it was, but it's very interesting that we're talking about a door and then he asking about a door. Yeah, okay. Anyways, halacha Rebbe Eliezer, halacha is like Rebbe Eliezer. So Moshe Rav Amram with the Ram Lamand, Rav Amram asked a kasha. We have a Mishnah that says later on, Midivreim Lamandu, we learn out from their words. Shapaikakin, you can close up, Umaydidin, and measure V'kaishim b'Shabbos, you can tie a Shabbos. Right? So what do you mean? You see there, you are allowed to be paikik. You just got finished saying, Rabbi Lezer, you're not allowed to be paikik, and here we're saying that you are allowed to. What's your das? Mishum de Katani Stama Nagar Hanigra. I'm sorry, Mishum de Katani Stama, because it says it's a Stam Mishnah, so we pass on like a Stam Mishnah. Nagar Hanigra Nami Stamahi. The Nagar Hanigra is also a Stamahi. Afilu Hachi, and even so, Maisa Rav. What we're saying is that we're going to pass more from a Maisa Rav, right? Because if we see him, if we're not sure which way to paskin, and we see a Maisa Rav that he paskin one specific way, then that's enough. Meaning, a Maisa, we don't paskin like a Maisa Rav against the psak in Shulchan Aruch. That's not what the Gemara is saying. The Gemara is saying that we have two ways, that we have conflicting ways to paskin, right? So if there's two ways to paskin, then we are going to go with the Maisa Rav, because that's where we actually saw him doing it. Meaning, sometimes you sit in Bismerish and you can say, yeah, that's what he meant. That's what I hold, but Lamaisa, I'm going to be machmer when it comes down to it. But here, you see that he actually did it. So therefore, we're going to go with that psak more. Okay, so Zog the Mishnah. Kol kisi kalim, all covers of kalim, sheyesh lem beis achiza, nitlam b'Shabbos. That's what we just said. Any kalim that have on it a handle, then you are going to you're allowed to take it on Shabbos. That's only with the cover of the ground, right? But a kisa kalim, kisa utensils, then either way you're allowed to. They're allowed to be taken on Shabbos, meaning whether they have a handle or not. Okay, so again, the Tanna Kama holds that all kalim have to have a handle on it, and then they could be taken on Shabbos. I mean, they don't have to, but the default is that they're not muksa if they have a handle. Rabbi Yossi says no. That's by karka. If it's, I think the way I understand this is those garbage cans. Some towns have garbage cans in the ground, right? You ever see that? I don't know where they have that, but
Yaakov, we used to have it as kids growing up here in Rockaway.
Yeah, they have
so?
them in random houses in Rockaway.
Yeah, it's Yaakov.
Yeah.
Next door to me, Yoshi Miller had to fill it in because a person walked by and fell.
Right. I don't know if anyone really uses them anymore.
I remember his cans.
There's a couple of apartment complexes here that have them. They use them.
So? Okay, so that's what I think the Mishnah is talking about. Kisa
The house by the first
Aaron
Park by the Erev.
Aaron Kaplan, you should better off using a beer stein with a cover on Shabbos. Said don't drink from a bottle on Shabbos. Drink from a beer stein, a fancy beer stein with a cover. Be geschmack.
Okay, I'm in. I'll give it a shot.
And then it's not muksa. But anyway, so Rabbi Yossi is saying that a kisui karka needs to have a handle, because when you put it on the karka, it looks like you're building, right? Al kisui kalim, but covers for kalim, regardless of whether they have a handle or not, they can be carried on Shabbos. So Amar Rav Yehuda bar Shila, Amar Rav Asi, Amar Rav Yochanan, hu sheyesh teiras kli alein, right? That has to have a teiras kli on them, meaning it can't just be a piece. A rock from outside that seems to have a handle, right? That's not going to work. The kuliyama kisik hakois im yeshlen beis achiza in Eloi Loi. According to everybody, a cover for something that goes in the ground, if it has a handle on it, it could be taken. If not, not. Kisik kalim, covers of kalim avagav de einlen beis achiza, even if it doesn't have a handle. Fine, everybody agrees in those cases. Ki pligi bekalim the chabrinu ba'arav. Let's say you have a kli that you attach to the ground. I'm assuming that this is talking about, I would say, let's say a barbecue grill that you actually attached it. You know, people take the gas line and they attach it to the house, right? Maybe that would be considered attached. So now the cover of that, is that considered, that's not in the ground, but it's not a kli either because it is attached to the ground. Like Lugabi Tum Tara, it's probably considered Mechober Lakarka, even though that was yesterday's Gemara, whether an oven has that hold in or not. Okay, but I'm assuming that that's the case. So now, do we look at it like it's karka and it needs a handle, or do we look at it like it's a kli and it doesn't need a handle? So keep pligi bekalim the chavrinu ba'ara. The whole maflaik is with kalim that are attached to the ground. Marsa v'gazrina. One says you make a gezerah, one because of the other. So if we have to be machmer. Umarsa v'loy gazrina, and the other one says you don't have to be geyser, and therefore you can use it without a handle. Lishnachrina, different shot. Keep pligi bekisik taner. When are we having a machlokes? That's by covering over a tanur. Mar medami lekisa karka, mar medami lekisa kalim. Right. So a tanur also is in the ground, right? So the cover of a tanur, right? It's because attached to the ground. So one sheet that compares it to the karka, and therefore it needs a handle, and the other sheet that says it's a kalim, and then it doesn't need a handle. Yeah? Fine, which is really very similar pshatim. They're very similar pshatim. Okay, hadron la kol kalim. Fine. Now we get into this next Mishnah we get back into Muksa a little bit, and then Tircha. Right? This is really, I think, the first Mishnah. Simon's not here, is he? Because this is the first Mishnah that really talks about Tircha and Shabbos. Mefanen afilu arba v'chamesh kupas shel teven v'shel tvua mipnei ha'archim mipnei bittul beis hamedrash. So you're allowed to remove 4 or 5, 4 and 5. We'll see in the Gemara if it's 4 or 4 and. Well, why the Gemara has to say 4 and 5? I mean, if you can move 5, you certainly can move 4. Right? So there are boxes of grain, right? So you're allowed to move them, 4 and 5 of them, because of guests, or because of bittul besmerish, or because you need the place for people to sit in besmerish. But you can't use it for storage, which we're going to see in the Gemara exactly what that means. Mefan and Truma Tahira. Now this is you have a lot of these Mishnayos throughout Shas. It goes through all the different levels of Tum and Tahira. Right? So Mefan and Truma Tahira, you're allowed to move Truma Tahira, Truma that's Tar, Udemai, and Demai is Suffolk Meiser, Umeiser Rishon Shenitla Trumase, and you're allowed to take Meiser Rishon that the Truma was taken off, but the Meiser was not yet taken off. Umeiser Sheni Vehekta Sheniftu, and Meiser Sheni, which goes up to, you have to take that up to Yerushalayim, Vehektish and Hektish Sheniftu, that they were redeemed. Now the question is, why shouldn't you be able to move all these things? Right? Turmus, Hayavish, and dry, how do you type Turmus? What do you say? Beans?
Type of bean, lupine.
Lupine, okay, that's
type of bean.
Type of bean, yeah. But Turmas, dried ones with Neshu Michael Lazim, because now this is very interesting, right? What does that word say? Lazim, leizim, right? It's to goats, since it's goat food, so it's not muksa. On the side of the Gemara, it says la'aniyim, right? That Zion and the Nun got interchanged. How to interchange? There's 2 different girsoyas, right? It's either a Zion or a Nun. So if it's a Zion, so it's food for animals. If it's a Nun, it's cheap food for poor people. Avaloyas a tevel, but you can't do tevel, which is food that Trumas and Maaseh were not taken off, because it's going to be muksa, obviously, because you're not allowed to take Trumas and Maaseh off on Shabbos. Avaloyas Maaseh Rishon Shaloi Not Trumasa, Avaloyas Maaseh Sheni Vek the Shaloi Niftu, because all of these things are not edible because they're usher to eat, because they weren't Trumas and Maaseh weren't properly taken off. Avaloyas Haluf, Avaloyas Achardo. So I think luf is also some sort of bean, right? And not mustard. Mustard meaning unground mustard seeds, right? Because since it's not ground, it's not edible.
Demai, why is Demai any better? Demai, you still have to take off Meiser at the end of the day. I understand it's only been Darabanan.
No, because so the Gemara is going to ask that. The Gemara is going to answer that Demai, because Demai is mutter fa'aniyim, so you can just be mafker all your belongings, make yourself into an ani. Right? That's we're going to have some very interesting Gemaras about.
You can be mafker. You can be mafker on Shabbos.
You can be mafker on Shabbos. Yeah, you just can't do kinyonim, but yeah. So Rav Shimon Gamliel mater belof mipnei shu Michael Arvin. Rav Shimon Gamliel maters it belof, right? Because he says that what's it called? Ravens, right? And Arv can eat it. Chavile kash v'chavile eitz, in bundles of straw and bundles of wood, v'chavile zradim, and bundles of, how do you say zradim again? Reeds, right? So imiskinon l'Michael behema, if they're meant to be eaten for animals, some metaltalin some vimlav, a metaltalin, and if not, then you can't take them. Fine, let's just do 2 lines of the Gemara. So hashta, right? So again, the Mishnah says you're allowed to remove 4 and 5 boxes. Hashta chamish mefaner, if you're allowed to move. But we didn't explain what the story is with the 5 boxes, right? It's not what's the problem, right? It's not a muksa issue. It's a tircha issue. You shouldn't be schlepping boxes for no reason. So we're saying for Archim and for middle base letters, you're allowed to move boxes. So Gemara says, Hashta Chamish Mefaner. What?
Why?
Because of the Shas Adchak. Because of the Shas Adchak. For Bismedrish, you're going to do a tircha for Bismedrish. And for guests, you're going to do... Now, by the way, guests does not mean because you decide to have your friend over. That's not guests. That's not Achnosas Orchim. I hate to say it. I don't want to... When you make a Kiddush and you have everybody come over to Kiddush, that's not Achnosas Orchim. Achnosas Orchim if the guy has no place to stay. Right?
So having your new Adam is not considered Achnosas Orchim?
Well, your new Adam could be poor because he just got married. He's got nobody supporting other than the father-in-law. So maybe it could be it's Aniyim and Orchim. That could be, right? But I'm saying that really the only opportunity is, I would say, the guys in Shayashu when the yeshiva doesn't feed them, they need a place for Shabbos. That might taka be legit Achnosas Orchim. Achnosas Orchim is not to invite your neighbor over for a Suda. Okay, but whatever it is. No, because Reb Zev, you're asking that is that a tircha? And a chanami for to have your friends over wouldn't be a tircha. It would be legit for something like that.
Yeah, but
Anyways,
the other daf we said you should invite people over if the house is on fire.
that's true. That is true.
No, I'm just saying tircha is subjective. What is it?
And a chanami. So the Gemara is going through what I guess the Gemara figures 4 or 5 boxes is like the max. Well, let's see. Well, anyway, so the Gemara says, Hashta Chamish Mefan and Arba Miboy. If I'm allowed to move 5 boxes, well, of course I can move 4 boxes. It means that if there's 5 boxes there, only move 4. Like this is a hecker that you don't move all 5 like this.
But the Lashon of the Mishnah, not Arba Mechamesh. It's Arba Vechamesh.
Right. So was it 4 and 5?
So he's explaining the Mishnah, no?
Right. Right, that's one pshat. Ikadami Arba me oitzer katan v'chamesh me'oitzer gadol. The other pshat is that it's 4 from a small area and 5 from a large area. Right? Okay, so that's the next. My aval is already okay. 10 o'clock. What's the Shabbos? Yeah.
10.
10.
Next week already we could probably Bez Hashem start getting a little earlier. Hopefully.
No.
All right.
One more week at 10.
Cleveland says no.
Cleveland says no, huh? Yeah.
Here's a Rabbi Stein, it looks,
Shabbos is
based
still
on the
after
weather
10
map,
here.
it looks like where you went, it's worse than it is here.
Where what?
Where you are, it looks like the storm was supposed to be worse than it is here in Barak.
Why? Lakewood is done. There's no more rain. We're done. According to my weather here. But you're right. My tent is gone.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I have 2 more left, so.
All right. It's not gone.
Do you know where it is?
It's sitting on my front lawn.
Oh, okay. If it's gone, let me know. Because 10 o'clock Burki, I'll find more tents. I'll do that.
Okay, you just turned it into a pool. It's upside down. It's filled with water.
There you go. It's Grata, Gershon. I didn't bring it up because I have a day camp in my backyard, so they have a pool, right? So they have a fence around the pool with a mechitza. That fence also blew down. So now the shaila is a mechitza.
Ooh.
Is mechitza materes on Shabbos or not? Yeah, it's a good shaila. Yeah.
By the way, as far as Hachnosas Orchim is concerned, with family, I heard once that having one's shver, it depends on the lashon you use to bench. If he gives you benching.
What are you saying?
One of my shvag is having a shver as far as Hachnosas Orchim is concerned.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a shvag who said over this by Sheva Brachas, by my in-laws.
Yeah.
He said when your shver gives, you go to your shver to eat and he gives you benching. So there's some dispute about what lashon to use. Some say chami mayri, some say mayri chami. I just say chamayri.
You serious? Wow.
No, I'm saying that's what he said. I'm saying for someone who says chamayri, that's probably Hachnosas Orchim.
Very good. Well, you know what? If it's not going to be Hachnosas Orchim then, it's going to be Hachnosas Orchim right after that. Anyway, all right. Shabbat shalom.
Good Shabbos.
Yeah, have a good Shabbos.